Now, today let us study few more applications of Gauss theorem. Already we studied one of the application of Gauss theorem, which is nothing but finding out the electric field at a point outside a charged spherical shell. That means we took one spherical shell like this, which is charged positively, then by imagining one Gaussian surface outside this spherical shell like this, we determined what's the electric field at a point P, outside this shell, spherical shell, by choosing one small elemental area all around the point P. All around the point P, we selected one small area delta A, and what is the electric field at this point due to this entire charged shell, spherical shell, is determined as equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square, where q is the charge given to the shell and r is the distance of the point P from the center O of the shell. That means in this case r forms the radius of the Gaussian surface. So this is the equation in which we already obtained by making use of Gauss theorem. Now let us study one more application of Gauss theorem. In this case, now I am going to consider one infinitely large charged sheet, plane sheet. That means if you consider this as a sheet, infinitely large sheet. Let us know what is meant by infinitely large little later. So this is one conducting sheet which is charged. If you give the charge to this conductor, we know that the charge gets distributed on either side like this. So it gets distributed like this. If you give positive charge on either side, this side and also on this side, on both this side, it gets distributed uniformly. So that is what we have considered here. I took one charged sheet, understand? Then due to this charged sheet, at a certain distance from it, what's the electric field? That we have to determine using Gauss theorem. Here, why it is called as infinitely electric field at a point due to an infinitely uniformly charged plane sheet, infinitely large, we say. What does it mean? Infinitely large means, suppose if I consider the charged sheet like this is the vertical position. From that side, you can see only the side of the sheet. Suppose from that side you are seeing this plane, means this is a planar view, whereas this one is nothing but a side view of the sheet. So here I have kept the sheet like this, which is charged positively, like this. So the charge gets distributed on either side of the sheet. Okay. So the charge gets distributed on either side of the sheet. Here, what is meant by infinitely large? Suppose if I consider a sheet like this, let us represent that by means of a straight line, because it is a side view and this is charged. It is charged. Okay. Then suppose if I choose a point P which is at a distance r from this sheet. So this is nothing but sheet, charged sheet. Then if the size of the sheet is very large compared to the distance, of the point P at which electric field is required. If I need to find the electric field at the point P, let this point P be at a distance r. If this distance is small compared to the entire size of the sheet or area of the sheet, then we call this as infinitely large sheet. Infinitely large means not extending up to the sky at the top and not going too deep inside the earth. It's not like that. This should be small when compared to the entire size of the sheet. That is the meaning of infinitely large. Now, how will be the electric field on either side of the sheet? Let us consider like this. This is the sheet in which I have chosen. So, it is charged on either side. Electric field both on this side and also on this side, it will be like this. Okay. So, this is how the direction of electric field from this side, and again even from this side also it will be like this. All electric field lines are found to be parallel to one another like this. That means on both sides of the sheet, the electric field lines are emanating like this, like this, like this, again like this, like this, like this. So, this field is nothing but uniform electric field. Okay, now let us come back to this. One such charged sheet is kept here. Okay, so let Q be the charge given to the sheet which got distributed on its either side uniformly. In order to apply the Gauss theorem, we need to have one Gaussian surface. Here what I have done means, I have chosen one Gaussian surface in such a way that Gaussian surface may be of any shape. But in this case, I have chosen one rectangular parallel piped shaped structure as the Gaussian surface. That means, suppose if this is the sheet, okay, now I imagine this like this and also like this. Look here. So, these are nothing but, this is what you can see from the figure. This is nothing but rectangular shaped parallel piped. Why it is called as parallel piped? Because this surface is parallel to this surface is parallel to this. So, one imaginary rectangular parallel piped structure is considered, or geometrical figure is considered here as the Gaussian surface. So, this is nothing but parallel piped Gaussian surface. Okay, now let us consider, let A be, I choose one small area, let this area be delta A. That means this area, I imagine this area as delta A. Again this side, this area also equal to delta A. Both are identical. This is also identical and even this area is also identical. But I imagine this Gaussian surface to be passing through this sheet. That means no need to cut the sheet because Gaussian surface itself is imaginary. So, don't feel like that we have to cut the sheet and we have to insert one more structure like this. Of course, it is one rectangular shaped structure, but it is only an imaginary figure which serves as a Gaussian surface. So, I imagine the Gaussian surface to be passing through this sheet. What is that I need to find? I need to find now what's the electric field at this point, either at this point or at this point. At this point, what's the direction of electric field? We know very well that due to positive charge, the direction of electric field is always away from it. So, since this side is charged positively, electric field is directed away from the sheet like this. Similarly, at this point, what is the direction of electric field? It is directed like this. Let us write that. Okay, now I represent one area vector. Delta A is the area vector. Again, here also delta A is the area vector. Here, how many similar surfaces are there for this Gaussian surface? These two end faces are identical. That is one type. Remaining all top, bottom, front, back, all these are parallel to each other and they are of rectangular in shape. That's another type. So end face area forms one type, and remaining rectangular shaped parallel surface, top, bottom, front, back. Okay, more clearly I can consider like this. Look here, this is end face of area delta A. So this is one rectangular face, top of in the forward direction, top, bottom and back. So what I do means I find the electric field, electric flux coming out from this entire Gaussian surface. Delta A is the area of each of the end face of Gaussian surface. Okay, parallel piped Gaussian surface. If I mind, I can call this as phase 1 and I can call this as end face as phase 2. So two end face and top face I consider. This is phase 3. What's the direction of electric field with respect to the top face? The electric field direction is always like this, away from the sheet. Okay, so this is the direction of electric field now. Then to this area, I draw one area vector. Area vector should be drawn always perpendicular to the surface, directed outwards. So I have drawn one area vector, delta A. Now remember, with respect to these two area vector and with respect to this top area vector, the angles made along with electric field are different. In this case, the angle between the area vector and the electric field is theta equal to 0 degree. I can call this as theta 1 equal to 0 degree. Here once again, area vector and electric field are parallel to each other, therefore theta 2 equal to 0 degree. Let us call this angle as theta 3. This angle is equal to 90 degree. Similarly, if you consider the front face of this Gaussian surface, then area vector will be like this. Once again, electric field will be like this. Remember, so this is nothing but the electric field direction and this is nothing but area vector. Whether you consider the front face or the top face or the bottom face like this. This is area vector and this is nothing but electric field. So in all the cases, that means for top, bottom, front, back, for all these faces, it is found that the electric field and area vector are perpendicular to each other. Only for the end face, the electric field and as well as area vector are found to be parallel to each other, both for this end face and also for this end face, but here it is directed this side. Consider now first the flux through end phase 1. So when there is an electric field line coming out through certain area, then certainly we can define electric flux or we can take electric flux into consideration. So this is the area through which electric field lines are emerging. Again, this is the area through which electric field lines are emerging. Therefore, flux through end phase 1, I take this as phi 1 equal to E dot delta A, which can be written as E into delta A into cos theta 1. So which is equal to E into delta A cos theta 1 means 0 degree. That means phi 1 becomes equal to E into A because cos 0 is nothing but equal to 1. Similarly, what is the flux through end phase 2? Flux through end phase 2. Same formula, phi 2 equal to, directly I write this delta A into cos theta 2 that means E into delta A into cos 0 degree, that means phi 2 equal to E into A, E into delta A. Electric flux through all other parallel piped surface, I write this as phi all. I write this as phi all, or else I can also write this as phi 3. So this is equal to, now what do I write now? E delta A into cos, what is this angle? Theta 3. This is E into delta A into cos 90 degree. So cos 90 nothing but 0. So phi 3 becomes equal to E into delta A into 0 means 0. That means no electric flux is emerging from any one of the rectangular parallel piped surface. Only the electric flux is coming out from the two end faces which are on either side of the charged sheet. So now find the total flux. Let us write like this: total electric flux through entire Gaussian surface, through entire Gaussian surface is given by phi equal to phi 1 plus phi 2 plus phi 3, or instead of phi 3 I can write phi all also. So this is E into delta A plus E into delta A plus 0, which is 2 equal to E into delta A. Then what's the surface charge density? This is the total flux. Then if I want to find the surface charge density, you know that surface charge density is given by the formula. What is the symbol we use? We use the symbol sigma, surface charge density. So by definition, surface charge density is given by, so surface charge density is given by charge per unit area. If I imagine this delta A as unit area, then sigma is given by Q divided by delta A. Then what is Q? Q equal to sigma into delta A. That means the total charge on the entire sheet in terms of surface charge density is given by surface charge density multiplied by the magnitude of the area element. This is the area element in which we have chosen. According to Gauss theorem, what can I write now? According to Gauss theorem, total flux is nothing but 1 over epsilon times the total charge. Okay. So if this is the statement of Gauss theorem, then let us consider this equation. Phi equal to 2 into E into delta A. In place of phi, I substitute 2 into E into delta A, 1 over epsilon naught. For Q, what I can substitute? Sigma into delta A. Sigma into delta A. So cancel off this delta A and delta A. So what is E now? E equal to 1 into sigma is sigma divided by 2 into epsilon naught. I cancelled delta A and delta A. Now E I retained there only, equal to I have written 1 divided by epsilon naught, 1 divided by epsilon naught, but 1 into sigma is sigma. Again cross multiply 2 and bring it to the denominator of the right hand side. So this is the expression for the electric field at a point due to a charged sheet. So if you consider a charged sheet like this, either at this point or at this point or at this point, or at this point, or at this point. Similarly, this side, either at this point, or at this point, or at this point, or at this point, the magnitude of electric field remains to be same. You may wonder here, because we know that as we move away from a charge, the magnitude of electric field goes on decreasing. But in this case, in case of a charged sheet, according to this final equation, E is not depending on the distance. Even if I consider right from the sheet to this point, if this distance, if I choose this distance as equal to R, if I mark this distance as equal to R, still the distance term is not appearing in this equation. That means this electric field is independent of the distance on either side of the sheet. Whether you take the electric field here, or at this point, or at this point, or at this point, or at this point, the magnitude of the electric field remains to be same, and it is given by surface charge density upon, means divided by 2 times epsilon naught. What is epsilon naught? Absolute permittivity of free space. Since the sheet is kept in free space, we use epsilon naught. Suppose if I move away too far from the sheet, then this distance also goes on increasing. At some point, this distance will become equal to the size of the sheet. Then in such a case, the sheet cannot be considered as infinitely large. When this distance becomes equal to almost the size of the sheet, then it is no more an infinitely charged sheet. But till then, you can consider up to what? Up to certain distance, the electric field is not going to change, but at very large distance, the situation changes. Now, we shall study one more application of Gauss theorem. That means finding out an expression for the electric field at a point due to an infinitely long charged wire, uniformly charged wire. Look here, expression for electric field at a point due to an infinitely long. It is infinitely long. In the previous case, we studied infinitely large sheet. Here, infinitely long, uniformly charged thin wire. The wire should be charged uniformly. That means the distribution of the charge on the wire must be uniform. Let us consider now a thin wire like this. I consider one thin straight wire like this. Now let this wire be charged to Q coulombs, so that the charge gets distributed uniformly on the wire. So here the charge distribution is nothing but line charge distribution or linear charge distribution. So this is nothing but a thin wire. Now, suppose if you consider, let us imagine this as a thin wire in which I have chosen here. Suppose if I consider the electric field at this point, at this point, at this point, at this point, all around this wire, at this point, at this point, at this point, at this point, at same distance, all around the wire. Here, it will be electric field will be like this. Say for example, from here to here, the distance is same. Again, what about electric field at this point? It will be in this direction. Now here it will be in this direction. At the back it will be in this direction. Again here it will be in this direction. So that means all around this conductor or this wire, at same distance, the magnitude of the electric field remains to be same. Let us write one simple diagram. Okay, this is how the electric field will be. Understand? Here. Again, at the middle, at same distance all around this conductor, once again, the electric field will be like this. So what does it indicates? All around this wire, the electric field at same distance is found to be same, its magnitude is found to be same, and it has one symmetry. Field is symmetry. What type of symmetry it is? It is nothing but cylindrical symmetry. Because if I join these two imaginary discs in which I have drawn with respect to this wire, indicating the electric field all around this wire, then what do we get now? We get a cylindrical structure. That is why we say that the electric field all around a straight conductor at same distance is found to be symmetry, and that symmetry is nothing but cylindrical symmetry. So this gives us one idea to select the Gaussian surface. For this case, the Gaussian surface must be cylindrical. Why it should be cylindrical? Why not spherical? If I think like that, let us understand that case also. Suppose if I imagine one sphere like this, okay, what will be the electric field at this point? Electric field at this point. At this point, the electric field is found to be different, because from the wire, the distance is found to be different. This distance keeps on changing on either side. Okay? Like this. So, since the distance keeps on changing, the magnitude of electric field at all these points on the surface of the sphere, remember this is not a circle, this is nothing but sphere. That means, if I imagine one sphere all around this conductor, if I imagine one sphere like this, then the distance from this wire at different point on the surface of the sphere do not remain same. So it is found to be different. Look here, from the figure itself we can make out. Here it is different, here it is different, here is different. It varies. That is why electric field is not same. In such a case, we cannot consider the sphere as a Gaussian surface. If you want to consider a Gaussian surface, then the electric field produced by that particular shaped conductor must be uniform. Even in the previous case, we understood that in case of charged sheet, on either side of the sheet, the field is found to be uniform. So if this is the sheet, both on this side and also on this side, the electric field lines are found to be parallel. Okay, that's why field is said to be uniform. So since field is said to be uniform here, we selected a suitable Gaussian surface, which is nothing but a parallel piped Gaussian surface. But you must know one more thing with respect to the sheet. Instead of considering parallel piped Gaussian surface like this, rectangular shaped Gaussian surface like this, I can also consider a cylinder. Cylinder I can consider. Suppose if you imagine this as a cylindrical tube, then if I pass the cylindrical tube through the sheet, that means just if I imagine that cylindrical tube is passing through the sheet like this, then the cylinder will also act like a Gaussian surface for this charged sheet. So depending upon the shape of the conductor, we choose appropriate shaped Gaussian surface. Now coming to this wire, infinitely long. What is meant by this? Infinitely long. Suppose if I consider a conductor, if I choose a point P at which electric field is to be determined, Now suppose if r is the distance, and if distance is very small compared to the length of this conductor, then we call this as infinitely long conductor. That's the meaning. So this should be small compared to its length. Let L be the length of this wire. So L is very large compared to R. That is why it is termed as infinitely long. Now we shall consider one Gaussian surface all around this conductor. As an example, I imagine this pipe itself as a Gaussian surface, which is nothing but cylindrical in shape. This is conductor and this is Gaussian surface. Let us write that Gaussian surface now. Let us extend this a little bit, both at the top and at the bottom, because we shall know about this. At the end. Okay. So just I extended the wire. As you see here, above the Gaussian surface, a little bit extension of the wire is there. Even below the Gaussian surface, once again a little bit extension of the wire. Now I choose the length of the Gaussian surface as equal to L. Say for example, from here, let L be the length of the Gaussian surface. Okay. Now here I am not going to consider L as the length of the wire, because the length of the wire is very long. So let the length of this Gaussian cylinder or Gaussian surface be equal to L. That means inside the Gaussian surface, the length of the wire should be taken once again equal to L itself. So let us write this outside, which is more convenient. If L is the length of the Gaussian surface, then the length of the wire inside the Gaussian surface should be taken as equal to L. So right from here to here. Understand? Entire Gaussian surface means find out the flux coming out from this entire curved surface, and also from this face and also from this face. That means from the top face, what is the flux that's emerging, and from the bottom, what is the flux that is emerging, and again from any one of the point on this curved face, what is the total flux. You find out, then add it up. If I add all these flux, then that's going to give us total flux. Then we can apply the Gauss theorem. So let us remove this for time being. I choose one point P on the Gaussian surface. So this is nothing but cylindrical Gaussian surface. Okay. Then Q is the charge given to what? Given to this wire. Let us call this as point P. At the point P, that means, look here, I am going to choose, this is the point P here. all around this point I consider one area. Understand? I can consider one small area, or else what I do means I consider this entire curved surface, curved cylindrical surface itself as the area, and on that area I have chosen one point. So this way also I can consider. P, at the point P, what is the electric field? E is the electric field. Understand? E is the electric field. Directed how? Directed outwards perpendicular to the Gaussian surface. If this is the Gaussian surface, it is directed outwards like this. Again at the front, it is directed outwards like this. Again at this side, it is directed outwards like this. Again at the back, it is directed outwards like this. So at all three positions, it is directed outwards, perpendicular to, look here, perpendicular to this Gaussian surface. At this point, and at this point, and at this point, at any other point, the direction of electric field is perpendicular to the Gaussian surface. Let us draw one area vector also. I call this area vector as now delta A dash, because this is the surface area. To this entire surface area, I have drawn the area vector in the outward direction. That means all along the direction of electric field. Delta A dash, or else I can consider delta S also. If I mind, I can consider even delta S also. Then at the top circular plane face, let us imagine or let us draw one more area vector. So delta S I consider as area vector. That means to the top plane circular face, area vector is directed like this. But at this point, what's the direction of electric field? It is one and the same. It should be directed. Even at the top, electric field should be directed away from the Gaussian surface and perpendicular to it. Even at the bottom, if I choose one point here, say for example this point, at this point I imagine one more area vector, that is delta S. Remember, these two circular planes have same area, delta S and delta S, whereas this has got a large area, that is why I represented this by delta S dash. Then once again let us draw the electric field direction at the bottom of the Gaussian surface. That means it is like this. So this is nothing but the direction of electric field. Similarly, if I mind, I can draw the electric field even on this side also. But if I choose only one side, that is sufficient. No need to draw or mention the electric field elsewhere on the Gaussian surface. Let us mark the angles now. What about this angle? Angle between delta S dash and E. Let us call that angle as theta 1 equal to 0 degree, because these two are in the same direction parallel to each other. I call this as phase 1, entire cylindrical face as phase 1, and top one as phase 2, and bottom one as phase 3. Okay. So I call this as phase 2 and this as phase 3. At the phase 2, what is the angle between the electric field and the area vector? Let us consider the angle as theta 2, which is equal to 90 degree. Once again here, at the phase 3, what is the angle between the electric field E and the area vector? It is theta 3 equal to 90 degree. Flux through end phase 1. Flux through end phase 1 is given by phi 1 equal to, look here, E dot delta S dash, delta S dash I take. Then if I write it appropriately, then it will be delta S dash into cos theta 1, cos theta 1. That means I am considering the flux through the entire cylindrical surface. From entire cylindrical surface, what's the flux coming out? This side or this side? So it's given by now E into delta S dash cos 0 degree. because delta S dash and electric field are parallel to each other. Therefore, theta is equal to 0. Then this will be phi 1 equal to E into delta S dash. Similarly, flux through N phase 2 and N phase 3 identical. 2 and 3 means N phase 2 and N phase 3 each is given by, what can I write now? Phi 2 which is equal to phi 3, or else phi 2 is equal to E. Directly I write now delta S into cos theta. This is nothing but flux equation, mathematical equation of electric flux. So this is equal to now, but for phase 2, what is the angle? Theta 2. E into delta S into cos 90 degree, that means phi 2 is equal to 0. Similarly, flux through this bottom end phase 3 is once again phi 3 is equal to 0. Why the flux through top end phase 2 and bottom end phase 3 becomes equal to 0? Because of the angle theta 2 and theta 3 each equal to 90 degree. Now what will be the total flux? Total flux coming out from the entire Gaussian surface, is given by phi equal to phi 1 plus phi 2 plus phi 3. What is phi 1? E into delta S dash plus 0 plus 0, because phi 2 is equal to 0 and phi 3 is also equal to 0. E into delta S dash, this is the total flux. But I substitute for delta S dash. What is delta S dash? Delta S dash is nothing but total area of the entire cylinder, that means Gaussian surface which is cylindrical in shape. So entire cylindrical area I have to consider. Area of the cylinder means circumference into length, that's the formula. So but delta S dash equal to circumference multiplied by length of the cylinder. What is circumference? 2 pi r. Length of the cylinder is L. What is r? Remember, r is the distance of the point from the conductor or from the wire. So this equation now becomes phi equal to, all that I need to do is substitute for delta S dash. That's all. We have found out the value of delta S dash as equal to 2 pi RL. So this will be E into 2 pi r into L. This is the total flux coming out from the entire Gaussian cylinder due to the charged conductor. Now what I do means, I apply the Gauss theorem. Why I apply the Gauss theorem? Because once we find the total flux coming out from the Gaussian surface, then we are eligible to apply Gauss theorem. So till you find the total flux, we cannot apply the Gauss theorem. According to Gauss theorem, what I can write means, total flux is equal to 1 over epsilon naught times the total charge. Now you compare this equation with this. Phi is there, left hand side of this and this are same. Therefore, right hand side of this must be equal to this. That means comparing, or else what I can do, I can substitute this value in place of phi. If I do so, then what happens to this equation now? That equation becomes now 1 over epsilon naught times q equal to E into 2 pi r into L. 2 pi r into L. Okay. But now I make use of the term linear charge density, because what's the total charge that is contained within this length, within the length of this cylinder, that if I want to find, but linear charge density linear charge density is given by, what is the symbol we use usually? We use the symbol lambda. It's given by charge per unit length. Charge per unit length. That means lambda equal to the charge. I consider the charge on the wire as Q. Then the length of the wire should be taken corresponding to length of the cylinder. What is the length of the cylinder? L. So if I cross multiply, then I get Q equal to lambda into L. Now I make the substitution of Q here. Then what do I get? If I make the substitution of Q here, then we get the Q as equal to 1 over epsilon naught. Q is equal to lambda into L. Then on this side we have E into 2 pi R into L. Okay. Now what is E now? E equal to, cross multiply this, 1 over 2 pi into epsilon naught. L and L gets cancelled. E equal to 1 divided by epsilon naught is there, 2 pi R. Send all this term to the denominator of the left hand side. 2 pi epsilon naught divided by R. R is also sent to the denominator of left hand side. What is left? On this side, the numerator, lambda is left. Write lambda. Okay. So this is the expression for the electric field at a point due to an infinitely long charged conductor. Remember, we do not consider this portion. Suppose if this is the Gaussian surface, now the charge with respect to this additional length both at the top and as well as at the bottom, we are not going to consider. We consider the charge corresponding to the Gaussian cylinder length, charge on the wire corresponding to Gaussian cylinder length. That means charge should be taken right from here to here itself. So whatever may be the length of the wire, so L will come into picture here. Okay, though it is not appearing in the formula, but it plays an important role in finding out lambda. So from this equation, we can say that electric field due to an infinitely long charged wire is depending on R. That means E is inversely proportional to R. If this distance increases, electric field goes on decreasing. Suppose at this point, if the electric field is of 5 units, at this point it will be less than 5 units, say for example 3. At this point it will be 2 units, at this point it will be 1 unit. At some point, somewhere at a larger distance, one of the point, what happens means the electric field completely becomes equal to 0. Okay, as we move away from the wire, the field goes on decreasing. But we do not see this situation in case of a charged sheet, because in case of charged sheet, what's the formula? We have electric field at this point with respect to this charged sheet is given by E equal to sigma divided by 2 epsilon naught. Here this distance, suppose if I choose this as point P, from the sheet to this point, if I choose this distance as R, this R is not appearing in this formula. So in case of charged sheet, the electric field goes on, electric field remains to be same, it do not decrease, provided if the sheet is considered as infinitely large. Otherwise, as I said earlier, the situation is going to differ and the field may change. So, what is the direction of electric field now in this case? The direction of electric field will be all along the direction of electric field at the point P is all along perpendicular to length of the cylinder. We can represent that by means of unit vector. How? If n cap is the unit vector which represents the direction of electric field, then the unit vector is directed all along the direction of electric field. So vectorial also we can write this. How? Put an arrow and introduce one unit vector n cap. What's the value of n cap? N cap value is equal to 1. Similarly, in case of charged sheet also, the direction of electric field is away from the sheet. perpendicular to it, away from the sheet. That means electric field will be like this, perpendicular to the sheet, and we can represent this once again by means of unit vector, n cap. Here also, I can write this in vector form, multiply this by unit vector. The unit vector is along the direction of electric field. So, finally, in both the cases, both in the cylinder and in the charged sheet, the direction of electric field here, it is perpendicular to the cylinder, that means Gaussian surface, away from it. In case of charged sheet, the direction of electric field is perpendicular to the sheet, away from it. So, that completes this chapter.